In the depths of space, where stars blinked like distant beacons and planets floated silently in the vastness, a terrifying reputation had grown about humans. The Exargan fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, had heard whispers about the human race for years. The Exargans were ruthless, aggressive, and feared by every other species they encountered. But even they, with all their power, had grown cautious when it came to the humans. They didn't understand them. Humans were small, but they were unpredictable. They had never been able to completely crush them, no matter how hard they tried. And now, a new mystery had appeared. A strange signal, coming from the farthest edge of known space, a place where no one dared to go. The Exargan fleet had decided to investigate. General Threx stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic display in front of him. His sharp, yellow eyes scanned the data with intensity. His fleet had been hunting down human colonies for years, and yet, here they were, standing at the edge of the galaxy, where the stars were faint and the darkness was suffocating. A signal was coming from a small, uncharted system. It wasn't a regular distress signal, like the ones they had encountered before. It was a message, but there was no known source. The Exargan fleet had been cautious in approaching it. But they were here now, only a few light years away. "They think we are fools," General Threx muttered, his voice cold and deep. "It is a trap." The thought echoed in his mind, and he said it again, louder this time. "It has to be a trap." His officers stood by, silently nodding, their faces hardened with the same fear and uncertainty. They had seen many battles, but this felt different. The signal was too strange, too out of place. The entire fleet had gathered around, waiting for orders. Their ships were massive and armed to the teeth, each capable of wiping out entire fleets in mere moments. But still, General Threx couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He paced back and forth, his large form casting long shadows on the walls of the bridge. The humans had been a constant thorn in their side. It wasn't just that they fought back, it was how they fought. Humans never played by the rules. They didn't understand the concept of surrender, and they didn't know when to give up. The Exargans had tried everything to break their spirit, but nothing had worked. And now, they had to deal with this strange signal. What was it? A trap. A trap to lure them into a vulnerable position. Was it possible that humans had found a way to fight back against the Exargan Empire, even from the farthest reaches of space? "Ready the fleet," General Threx commanded, his voice low but firm. "We move in slowly. We will not make the same mistake twice." The Exargan ships moved forward, their engines humming with power as they approached the mysterious signal source. The space around them was quiet, the stars distant and cold. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The fleet was on high alert, scanning for anything that might give away the true nature of the signal. But there was nothing. No signs of danger. No hidden threats. Just emptiness. The further they traveled, the more uneasy Threx became. He couldn't explain why, but something about the silence felt wrong. It was too still, too perfect. The kind of stillness that came before a storm. Then, as they drew closer, something appeared on their scanners. A small blip, barely noticeable at first, but there. A ship. A human ship. Alone. Floating in space. The ship was tiny compared to the Exargan fleet, barely the size of a small fighter. Its dark silhouette was hard to see against the blackness of space, but it was unmistakable. It was there, just as the signal had suggested. The ship wasn't moving. It just sat there, as if waiting. A single human ship, out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by the might of the Exargan fleet. General Threx stared at the image of the ship, his mind racing. The human fleet had been completely wiped out during the last battle. This ship was the last of their kind in this sector. It didn't make sense. Why would a human ship be here, in the middle of nowhere, with no reinforcements? Why would they risk everything to send a message, knowing that Exargans would come for them? It could be a trap. The thought lingered in the back of Threx's mind. The ship was small and vulnerable. It could be a distraction, a way to draw them in and destroy them. But Threx wasn't one to back down from a challenge. The humans had never intimidated him before, and they wouldn't start now. He narrowed his eyes and issued the order. Prepare to board. I want that ship captured. The Exargan fleet closed in on the human vessel, surrounding it like a pack of wolves. Every ship was in position, ready to strike. The human ship was completely still. No movement, no reaction. It was as if the captain of the ship wasn't even aware of the danger surrounding him. Threx's officers stared at the screens in disbelief. It was almost as if the human ship had accepted its fate. But then something strange happened. The human ship, which had been completely silent, suddenly came to life. Its engines roared, and a low hum filled the air. The Exargan fleet had expected the ship to run, to flee, to try to escape. But instead, it started moving toward them. Slowly but steadily, it was heading straight for Threx's flagship. The Exargan fleet commander's heart skipped a beat. What was the human captain thinking? Raise shields, Threx ordered. His fingers clenched around the armrest of his chair as the fleet prepared for any sudden moves from the human ship. But it didn't come. Instead, the human ship stopped just within firing range. And then, to the shock of everyone, a message came through. A simple transmission, a single voice. I know you think it's a trap, the voice said, calm and collected. But it's not. Threx blinked. The voice was clear, without fear, without hesitation. It was a human voice, and somehow it didn't make sense. The human had no fear of the Exargan fleet, the greatest military force in the galaxy. Threx couldn't understand it. The human wasn't screaming, begging for mercy. The captain of that ship was not trembling, not pleading for his life. The calmness of it rattled him. Who was this human? Send a response, Threx ordered, though he didn't know what he hoped to learn. Tell them to stand down. This is your only warning. But the human didn't respond with fear or resistance. Instead, the captain spoke again, his words carrying an odd certainty. If you want your fleet to survive, the human said, you will listen to me. Threx's eyes narrowed. He had expected a fight, or at least a show of fear, but not this. The human's words weren't a demand or a threat. They were a statement of fact. He was in control, despite being outnumbered, despite being surrounded. Threx's officers looked to him for direction. The uncertainty on their faces matched his own. Open fire, Threx finally commanded, his voice like steel. But just as the order was about to be given, something unexpected happened. The human ship unleashed a pulse of energy, fast, precise, and deadly. The pulse struck one of the lead ships in the fleet, sending it spiraling out of control. The shields of the Exargan fleet flickered and dimmed as the pulse of energy rippled through space, disrupting their systems. Threx's mouth went dry. The human wasn't afraid. And now, it seemed, the human was starting to turn the tide. The fleet was in chaos. The powerful pulse of energy had hit one of their lead ships, causing a chain reaction that spread through the fleet's systems. The Exargan ships were designed to be the strongest in the galaxy, but this was something different. This human ship, with its small size, had struck them with something they couldn't understand. The Exargan fleet's control was slipping. General Threx's hands gripped the armrests of his chair as he stared at the chaos unfolding on his ship's display. Report, he shouted, his voice harsh. An officer quickly tapped on his console, his face pale as he spoke. The lead ship's shields are down. Communications are down across multiple ships. We've lost control of the navigation systems on 2 others. This wasn't supposed to happen. The human ship, it's using some kind of advanced technology we've never seen before. Threx couldn't believe it. How was this possible? The Exargans were superior in almost every way. Their technology was far more advanced than anything the humans could ever create. But here they were, being crippled by a single human vessel. He knew he had to act quickly before it was too late. "Fix those systems," Threx ordered, his voice now a low growl. "We need to stop this before it gets worse." But the more the fleet tried to regain control, the worse it became. The human ship didn't attack again. It simply stayed where it was, its presence almost mocking. It was as if the human captain didn't even need to do anything anymore. The damage was done. The Exargan fleet, the greatest force in the galaxy, was now struggling to function because of one ship, one human ship, and that realization shook General Threx to his core. "Send a fleet-wide signal," Threx commanded, turning to his communications officer. "Tell every ship to focus on the human vessel. We will destroy it, no matter what it takes." As his orders were being relayed, Threx's mind raced. There had to be something more to this. The humans were resourceful, but this was beyond anything he'd ever seen. It was almost as if the human captain had known exactly what the Xargan fleet would do, what their weaknesses were. It was too perfect. The Xargan ships slowly began to reorient, preparing to attack the human ship with full force. The human ship, however, didn't move an inch. It remained still, silent in space, as though waiting for something. Threx's instincts told him something was coming. He couldn't explain why, but a deep sense of dread filled him. He had underestimated humanity, and now he was beginning to realize the cost of that mistake. "Prepare for impact," Threx ordered, his voice tense. The moment the words left his mouth, the human ship did something no one expected. From its hull, several small drones shot out into space, moving fast and with purpose. They were no bigger than fighter jets, but they moved with deadly accuracy. The drones streaked across space, heading straight toward the Xargan ships. "Engage the drones," Threx shouted, but it was already too late. The drones slammed into the Xargan ships, not with force, but with precision. One by one, they began to disable the weapons and shields of the Xargan fleet. It was as if the drones were targeting the weak spots on each ship, knocking out vital systems before the Xargans had time to react. It wasn't an attack in the traditional sense. It was more like a surgical strike, aimed at the heart of the fleet's power. The damage was immediate. The Xargan fleet began to lose communication. Their targeting systems were offline, and some ships started to spin out of control. It was like watching a massive predator lose its ability to hunt. The Xargans were trapped, unable to defend themselves, their once mighty ships now crippled by tiny, seemingly insignificant drones. General Threx's face twisted in disbelief. This was impossible. How could a single human ship, so small, have such advanced technology? How had they known exactly how to bring down the mighty Xargan fleet? They're toying with us," Threx muttered, his voice trembling for the first time. The realization hit him hard. The human captain wasn't trying to destroy them all at once. No, this was something far more dangerous. The human wasn't just trying to fight. They were outsmarting them. The human was turning their own power against them, using their strength as a weakness. Threx quickly ordered a retreat, hoping to salvage what was left of his fleet. "All ships, fall back now." But it was too late. As the Xargan ships tried to retreat, the drones continued their work. The human ship, though small and vulnerable-looking, had somehow turned the tables completely. The drones were disabling their systems, one by one. There was no escape. The human captain had them trapped. And now they were paying the price. Threx's hands clenched into fists, his heart pounding with frustration. He had never felt so powerless in his life. The once great Xargan fleet, feared by all, was now a broken mess, struggling to escape the grip of a single human ship. Then, just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, the human ship did something that completely shattered any hope the Xargans had of escaping. From the human ship, a powerful blast of energy shot out, hitting the lead ship in the fleet. The blast wasn't just a regular attack. It was unlike anything the Xargans had ever seen before. The lead ship exploded in a fiery burst, sending debris flying in all directions. The Ksargan fleet was in full retreat now, their morale shattered. What had been a strong, unstoppable force was now a fleeing, disorganized group of ships. Threx stood there, helpless, as he watched his fleet crumble before him. He had never experienced anything like this. The human had shattered their fleet, not with brute force, but with cunning, strategy, and the very thing the Ksargans had always underestimated: intelligence. The human captain's voice crackled through the communications channel once again, calm and collected. "I warned you. This was never a trap. This is just the beginning." The battlefield was silent now. Debris floated through space like shattered memories of the mighty Ksargan fleet. Pieces of broken ships drifted slowly, no longer part of any great power. The human ship, small, dark, and still, remained at the center of it all, untouched. It had not run. It had not hidden. And yet, it had defeated them. General Threx sat in his command chair, his claws clenched tight, his face dark with rage. The retreat had been a disaster. Half of his fleet was destroyed. The rest barely managed to escape, and all of it had happened because of one human ship, one human captain. "Who is he?" Threx growled. "I want to know everything." Back at the Ksargan command center, deep in the heart of their empire, agents and scientists worked day and night to gather information. They searched through every report, every old battle file, trying to understand how a single human could do this. But there was almost nothing. The human didn't match any known records. No name, no rank, no official background. It was as if he didn't exist. But he was real. Threx had seen him, heard him, and he had destroyed half a fleet in less than an hour. "He's a ghost," one of the intelligence officers said. "We think he was part of a secret Earth project, something outside normal military control." Threx slammed his fist into the table. "Then find that project. Find who built him." But deep inside, Threx was no longer just angry. He was afraid. The Ksargans had always believed they were the strongest. They had crushed dozens of civilizations, burned planets, broken empires. But now, everything had changed. The humans had shown they could strike at the heart of the Ksargan power and disappear again, leaving only fear behind. Meanwhile, light years away, the human captain sat quietly inside his small ship. His face was calm, his eyes sharp. His ship was moving again, deeper into unknown space, but he wasn't running. He was searching. The AI system on board spoke softly. "Message intercepted. Ksargan High Command is planning retaliation. Estimated time before response fleet arrives: 4 days." The captain nodded. "Let them come." He was already preparing. His ship, though small, was unlike any other. It was built not for large battles, but for control. It could shut down systems, confuse targeting, and disable fleets without ever needing to fire a single bullet. It was designed for one thing: to defeat stronger enemies through intelligence. The captain opened a small file on his screen. Inside were names, coordinates, and pictures. Not just Ksargans, but others. Races that had suffered under their rule. Colonies destroyed. Families lost. He had seen it himself, long ago, before he had disappeared. He remembered his home, one of the first Earth colonies to fall. His people had begged for help, but none came in time. He had been just a pilot then, young and full of hope. He had watched as the Ksargans burned his city to ash, watched them laugh as they left only silence behind. That day, he promised he would never stop fighting. But he didn't choose war. He chose something better. He became a shadow, a name no one knew, a weapon hidden inside a single ship. He had spent years preparing for this, learning their systems, studying their fleets. He had waited for the right moment. And now it had begun. Back on the Ksargan homeworld, Threx had finally recovered what he thought was a clue. A short, broken signal found deep inside the remains of one of the destroyed ships. It was a message left by the human ship, not in words, but in music. A slow, haunting song. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a warning. It was a promise. And that made it worse. Threx crushed the data tablet in his hand. I want every remaining ship, every scout, every drone. I want them all hunting that human. I want him erased. But as Threx gave his orders, he didn't know something important. The captain had never been alone. Elsewhere in the galaxy, small human ships began to awaken. Hidden deep inside asteroid belts, behind moons, or cloaked on dead worlds, they powered up for the first time in years. Each one had the same tech, the same mission. The captain was not the only one. These were survivors, pilots trained for the same purpose. The day had come. Humanity had been quiet for too long. But now, the real plan had started. Not to destroy the Xargans in one big battle, but to tear them apart, one fleet at a time. Slowly, smartly. The AI on the captain's ship blinked again. New message received. Allied ships are responding. Operation Shadow Dawn is now active. The captain smiled. He looked out at the stars and spoke quietly to himself. Let them chase me. Let them think I'm the threat. They don't know what's coming. Then he activated the next set of coordinates. A Xargan fuel depot. Deep space. Poorly guarded. Easy to disable. Not destroy. Just confuse. Delay. Bleed them slowly. This was not a war they understood. It was not about size or numbers anymore. It was about outthinking the enemy. And the humans had learned well. General Threx was growing more restless by the hour. The more he sent fleets to hunt the human captain, the more things went wrong. It was no longer just about one human ship. Now, across Xargan space, strange incidents were being reported. Weapon depots going offline. Communication centers shutting down. Patrol ships vanishing without a trace. Supply lines being cut. None of it made sense. There were no signs of big attacks. No wreckage. No broadcasts. Only silence. And failure. One of Threx's top officers entered the war room, shaking with fear. General, we lost contact with Sector 19. The outpost there is gone. Our ships report nothing but darkness. Threx's eyes narrowed. And the human? No trace. Threx stood slowly and walked toward the center of the room, where a holographic map showed all their territories. He stared at the spreading red marks, each one a sign of something wrong. The humans were moving like shadows, striking fast and leaving nothing behind. He had underestimated them. Again. They are not fighting like a normal empire, Threx said to himself. They're bleeding us dry, piece by piece. One of the younger officers looked up, confused. But why, General? Why don't they just destroy us in one big battle if they're so strong? Threx growled. Because they don't need to. This is something different. This is a war of ideas. And we're already losing. Across the stars, the human captain entered the orbit of a Xargan-controlled mining moon. The base there supplied rare crystals used for powering the largest Xargan ships. But today, the base was quiet. The captain's ship had already sent a virus through a hidden relay. The Xargan guards never saw it coming. Their systems shut down slowly, first lights, then shields, then comms. Inside the base, confusion spread. Officers shouted, running from one console to another, trying to stop what was happening. But it was too late. The humans didn't need to fire a shot. The captain landed silently and took what he needed. Fuel, maps, data. He left behind a single message carved into the wall. You're not safe anymore. Soon, the message was everywhere. Every system the humans touched, every station they visited. It was always the same message. Short, cold, clear. You're not safe anymore. The word spread fear faster than any fleet ever could. On the Xargan homeworld, citizens began to panic. News channels were silenced. Military broadcasts were replaced with fake victories. But the people knew the truth. Something was wrong. The humans weren't weak anymore. They weren't hiding. They were hunting. Threx was forced to call an emergency meeting with the Xargan High Council. Tall, powerful figures gathered around a massive circular table. Some were old warriors. Others were scientists or commanders of distant sectors. "We must strike Earth directly," one council member shouted. "Burn their homeworld. Show them we are not afraid." Threx slammed his fist on the table and fall into their trap. "That's exactly what they want. We'll waste our fleets, and they'll destroy us from behind." The council fell silent. "We are not fighting just humans," Threx continued. "We are fighting an idea. They believe they can outsmart us, and they are doing it." "So what do we do?" someone asked. Threx took a deep breath. "We don't go after Earth. We go after the one leading them. The captain. We find him. We break him. And we show the humans what fear really is." Back on the captain's ship, he was already preparing for that. He had known the day would come when the Xargans would try to trap him. He had already seen signs, strange broadcasts, false signals, fake distress calls trying to lure him in. But he didn't take the bait. Instead, he prepared the next step. "Aye," the captain said. "Bring up the next target." A large map lit up, showing a deep space weapons lab. Xargan Sector 41. A place where new weapons were built. It was far, quiet, and protected by only a few guards. The perfect target. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, the captain looked out into the darkness. He wasn't doing this for revenge anymore, not just to hurt the Xargans. He was doing it to stop them forever. He wanted to build a future where no more planets would burn. No more children would hide underground. No more voices would be silenced. He wasn't a hero. He didn't believe in glory, but he believed in action. The ship came out of hyperspace near the weapons lab. As always, the attack was silent. Clean. Quick. The guards were confused before they even knew they were under attack. Their lights flickered and died. Doors locked. Power cut. Alarms jammed. By the time backup came, the lab was already empty, and the human was gone. But again, he left a message. "This is your last warning." When Threx received the report, something inside him broke. He knew now. The captain wasn't trying to fight forever. He was giving them a choice. Stop now, or lose everything. But Threx was too proud. Too angry. "Prepare the Omega fleet," he whispered. "I want every ship. Every weapon. We're ending this." He stared at the stars. He thought he was hunting the human. But he didn't know. The human captain was already waiting for him. The stars were quiet, but everyone in the galaxy knew something was coming. General Threx's Omega fleet, more than 1,000 Xargan warships, was moving toward a single location, a dark sector of space with no planets, no stations, nothing. Just silence, the perfect place for the final battle. Or so Threx believed. His plan was simple: crush the human captain with overwhelming force. Surround him. Give him no way out. No place to run. No tricks. Just firepower. And this time, he was prepared. His ships had been upgraded to block the captain's drones. Their systems had been shielded. Traps were set. But as the massive fleet moved into position, something didn't feel right. There was no human ship in sight. Not on radar. Not hidden. Not cloaked. Nothing. Threx narrowed his eyes. "Where is he?" One of his officers responded, nervous. "Scanners show nothing, General. Maybe we arrived early." "No," Threx said. "He's already here. I can feel it." Then something unexpected happened. Every screen on every ship turned black. A single message appeared in white letters. "You brought your whole fleet. Good. So did I. The message disappeared. And suddenly, across the dark space, dozens of tiny signals lit up. Human ships, small and fast, decloaking from asteroids, behind moons, hidden in debris. They had been waiting. It wasn't just the captain anymore. It was all of them. Survivors, fighters, ghosts from lost colonies, humans who had trained in silence, waited in darkness, built ships from broken tech and stolen plans. Each one had a mission. Each one had a target. And now, they had come together. The Omega fleet opened fire instantly, sending beams of light and missiles across the sky. But the human ships didn't attack directly. They'd moved through the chaos like shadows, cutting systems, jamming signals, hacking weapons. Then, the captain's ship appeared, right in the center of it all. Threx saw it and shouted, "Destroy that ship." Now, hundreds of weapons locked on. They fired everything. But the captain's ship had already moved. It darted past the Kargan line, its systems dancing around every blast. And as it passed, the other human ships followed, hitting weak spots, disabling engines, causing confusion. The Kargan ships began to turn on each other, tricked by false targets and hacked commands. Threx's fleet, the strongest ever built, was turning into a storm of fire and wreckage. The captain's voice came through the main channel. "You thought numbers would save you, but you don't understand. This was never a fight between fleets. It was a fight between the future and the past. And the past ends today." Threx watched helplessly as one of his dreadnoughts exploded. Another ship beside it went dark, spinning into an asteroid. All around him, the Omega fleet was being torn apart, not by stronger weapons, but by smarter minds. One by one, the Xargan ships were disabled, broken, or captured. The captain gave his final command. "Stop firing. Let the survivors go. We're not here to kill. We're here to end the war." And just like that, it was over. The Omega fleet was gone. The captain's ship floated slowly among the wreckage. He didn't cheer. He didn't smile. He just looked at the stars and felt quiet. He opened a channel to the remaining Xargan commanders who were still alive. "You can rebuild, or you can keep fighting and lose more. Your empire is broken, but your future doesn't have to be." No one answered, but he didn't need them to. Back on the Xargan homeworld, the silence was heavy. Threx stood in the ruined war room, watching the last reports come in. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from shame. They had lost. Not because the humans had more weapons, but because the humans had never given up. They had watched their homes burn, lost their families, been hunted across the stars. And still, they came back, not with hate, but with purpose. Threx removed his badge and placed it on the table. He was done. Far away, the human captain returned to Earth's outer orbit. The planet was still healing, but it was free. The other human ships joined him. Fighters, engineers, pilots, old veterans. They all landed in silence. No medals, no parades, just peace. For the first time in years, peace. The captain stepped out of his ship and looked at the rising sun over Earth's blue sky. One of the children from the colony ran up to him and asked, "Did we win?" He looked down, smiled softly, and said, "We made them stop. That's enough." The child held his hand, and together they walked toward the future. And in the stars above, the message remained. They thought it was a trap. The humans smiled. What happened next shattered their fleet. But that was just the beginning of a new story, a human story.